Hello, hello, hello. This is your neighborhood friendly Xeromorph coming to you today. I've got a new video. We are going to be creating a new character for a new Let's Play for the Final Nights version 1.5 HD. In this video, I don't really plan on playing any of the character, but I do want to go through character creation with you guys. Kind of explain why I'm doing some of the things I'm doing, why I'm picking certain feats and abilities and stats and all that good stuff. Before we get started on creating this new character for this new Let's Play, I wanted to go over some of the TFN 1.5 changes. I've got my notepad here up in front of me. I've got the bug fixes, and I got a list of new content and then things that I'm currently working on. So let's get started with the bug fixes. There weren't a lot of bug fixes that really was required from TFN 1.4.1 to 1.5 HD. It's more of a how would I say that? Like, not really like quality of life changes, but more like a rebalance, I would say. The original TFN 1.0 was supposed to be more of like a Skyrim Requiem kind of experience, where the game was supposed to be incredibly challenging, where there's death around every corner and that you feel incredibly weak at the beginning of the game. At least that was the intention of the Final Nights. It was meant to be for the more veteran players, people who have really just beaten the vanilla Bloodlines game so many times. They've pretty much memorized where everything is, how everything works, how to min-max your character, all of that stuff. And TFN was meant to really give those guys, some new challenge, given their old familiar game, but bringing it into new context of challenge, I guess, was kind of the whole point. Somehow, between TFN 1.0 and 1.4.1, I kind of got away from that, and I kept adding like new quests into the game, which granted more experience without reducing the amount of the original game's experience. I also did that with the money, such as like adding in the online banking hacking system, so that hackers could actually hack bank accounts, earn extra experience, earn money, with really no drawback. I didn't really balance it. I just added, and I kept adding. I did that with lock picking as well, where I put these boxes all over the maps. I think there's like a total of like 12 or 13 boxes, and all of them have a decent amount of money in them. I think it comes out to over $2,000 if you end up picking the locks of each one, and $2,000. I mean, that's that's some books right there, or some ammo, or some good weapons, or just whatever, a lot of blood bags. All sorts of stuff. So, I kept adding and adding and adding money and experience to the game without really taking it back out. And unfortunately, because of that, money is like everywhere now, and experience is so easy to come by. By the end of the game, I've actually read some Let's Plays and some reviews of people who have finished the Final Nights 1.4.1, and it really disturbed me when I saw someone say, I ended up the game with like $7,000 I didn't know what to do with, and I pretty much had maxed out every single stat that I had, at least the ones that I wanted to have, which was like over half the character sheet were like 10s. And that really bothered me, because it was like, man, that wasn't my original intention. So I've done a lot of rebalances in TFN 1.5. The game, 1.5, the game is going to be significantly tougher now, but it's, I didn't do it the lazy way, where I just made the bosses all like super hard, or made the enemies super hard, gave them a ton of experience, or health and damage and stuff like that. I didn't do it like that. What I did is I slowly and very carefully plucked away at different aspects of the game, reducing small amounts in a ton of different areas of the game, so that you're not really going to go into TFN 1.5 HD feeling like, wow, you know, he really nerfed this or he really nerfed that. You shouldn't even really feel like there was a nerf. You're just going to go, wow, you know, I don't quite have as much money as I used to, or I don't have quite as much experience as I used to. You know, weapons and ammo are a little bit tougher to find, or it's a little bit tougher to feed than I remember, you know, kind of thing. Like, the game's more challenging, but it's not like I'm just going to go out there and just, you know, nerf the crap out of the game and then break it. So, you know, I hate it when MMOs do that, where they're like, you know, people go in and complain, you know, this needs nerfed or this needs buffed or whatever, and they do it the lazy way, and they just, you know, throw a bunch of resources at that one thing, and they either, you know, buff it too much or they nerf it too much, and then you feel it, you know, as soon as you download the patch, you get into the game, you're like, okay, they obviously did something, because now it feels broken, but it feels broken the other way. They went too far with it. So I'm trying to avoid doing something like that. So really the bug fixes in my list here aren't really bug fixes, they're more like rebalances. The first one was I reduced the amount of experience given throughout the game. That's going to affect all the different clans. However, I made sure to pull from the quests that give 3 experience points or more. And the reason why I reduced it from that pool as opposed to the quests that reduce grant 1 or 2 experience points is because of the Bali. The Bali, and you know, I've heard this before, and I heard this in the vanilla Bloodlines too about the Tremere, is that the Tremere and the Bali are both overpowered compared to the other clans. I've heard people say that, you know, the character flaw of the Bali of not being able to go above level 6 in humanity wasn't really much of a nerf, or isn't really much of a flaw. I disagree with that, especially with the new systems. You pretty much have to stay at 6 because you start draining blood faster, 30 seconds actually, for every point of humanity that you lose below 6. So if you're at a humanity of 5, your blood timer's going to pluck a point from you every 3.5 minutes instead of every 4. If you're at a humanity of 4, you're going to lose a minute. If you are at a humanity of 3, you're going to lose a minute and a half. And then you also go into the new humanity changes, where even if you're around an innocent that dies, you're going to further lose humanity. So, you know, to me, the Bali flaw is actually pretty good. On top of that, you can't dance to earn humanity back. The other 6 clans can dance. You know, if you're really, really desperate, you don't have any experience to spend on humanity, and you gotta get that humanity back up, and there's just no dialogue options to do that, and you're suffering, you know, you're finding yourself frenzying often because your humanity is low. That can really suck for the Bali, the fact that they can't dance. So, but I do understand people's concerns at the fact that any experience that the Bali earn that's at 3 or higher, they get an extra experience point. Well, I went through the entire game and I looked at every single instance where the Bali do get an extra experience point, and with the new changes, the Bali are only going to get 4 extra experience now. There's only 4 parts in the game where they can possibly get 3 or more experience, granting them that extra 1 point. So just remember that when you pick the Bali, that you're going to be like, oh man, there's like 15 different times in the game where I get 3 experience or more. That's going to be an extra 15 points of experience. I want to play the Bali. Not in TFN 1.5 HD. You're going to get 4 if you complete all those quests. So that was, I mean, I don't want to say it's a huge nerf for the Bali. You know, it certainly doesn't make them unplayable. but it definitely makes them fall back in line with the other clans. But overall, the experience has been reduced for all the clans. Okay, another one. I was actually playing as the Ishtari clan. I've been playing with them for the past couple weeks, having a great time. By the way, the Ishtari are freaking awesome. A very overlooked clan because they don't have one of the new targetable disciplines. But the changes to celerity and presence, and what else do they have? I can't remember. Oh, and fortitude. With those changes, oh man, the Ishtari can be seriously awesome. Really, really awesome. Plus with their extra buff to, gosh, what is it? Their, I forget the name of it. Their appearance. There we go, brain fart. To their appearance helps with their seduction, which seduction's really important in TFN 1.5 because of the difficulty of hunting and feeding in public. It's really dangerous to do that. But anyways, the Ishtari clan weakness has been slightly increased in difficulty. Before, if you drop below, I believe it was below 6 blood points. See, there's 15 blood points in your blood pool, and as soon as you hit 5, then that would start a timer for the Ishtari. Every 4 minutes, they're going to lose 1 point of humanity until they get to 3. Then it stops. That's how it was in TFN 1.4. However, in 1.5, that level has been raised to 7. So if you have 7 blood points with the Ishtari or less, you're going to start losing humanity every 4 minutes. So that effectively means that the Ishtari have to keep their blood pool at 50% or higher. That's 8 or higher in order to not suffer from humanity loss. So it's not a big change, but I felt like it was just so freaking easy for me to keep my blood pool above 5. And again, 7 isn't even really that crazy either, but it is definitely more difficult, especially after boss fights. I noticed a lot of boss fights, you walk out of a boss fight with very little blood a lot of times. And that's really where you have to be careful as an Ishtari. You got to watch your humanity because you can be on your way to feeding and all of a sudden, boom, you just lose a humanity point. You're like, what the heck, man? You know, so this is going to make that a little bit more difficult. Another balance change is that I significantly reduced the amount of money for online banking, hacking, I guess I should say, the online bank hacks. I don't know what I was thinking when I implemented both the lock picking boxes throughout the game and the online bank hacking. There's 17 places in the game where you can hack a bank. And I totaled up the amount of experience and money because with online hacking, you get both experience. You get 1 experience point for every bank that you hack. And you also get some money. With the lock picking, you only get the money. And the amount of money I think was for lock picking was like $2,000, right around like $2,500, I think, if you get all the boxes. I think there's like 12 or 13 boxes. With hacking, there's 17 places, and it was like $4,000 or some crazy amount with that, and each one give you an experience point. I mean, that is so imbalanced. I'm embarrassed that I ever implemented something so imbalanced like that, but I did, and I have fixed it for 1.5. So with online banking, you still get the experience, so there's still 17 experience points waiting out there for you if you hit all of them. However, the amount of money that you're going to get is, I think, slightly over $1,000. It's not that much. Plus you have to run back to your Haven's mailbox to pick it up each time. Whereas when you pick the locks, you get the money right there and then. You know, it's in an envelope in the box. So you just pick it up, you have the money, and you get to keep playing the game. With online bank hacking, you have to keep going back to pick up your money, and it's not even going to be that much. So really, you know, the money's kind of trivial compared to the experience. The experience is really probably the most valuable part of why you would want to play a hacker style vampire. Let's see here. Okay, another balance tweak that I'm making to make the game a little bit harder is I've lowered the damage amount against supernaturals for the following disciplines. The Bali's conflagration, which is where he fires out the fire. You know, he like shoots out a fireball and then it lights the supernatural on fire, and then it does a percentage of damage. I've lowered that percentage. Let's see here. Another one I also did it to was the Infernal Servitor, which I think is discipline number 4. I think conflagration is 3. Infernal Servitor is 4. I've also reduced that amount. And notice this is only against supernaturals. This is not against humans or hunters or anybody else. This is just against supernatural beings. So the amount of damage you do with these against non-supernaturals is still the same. Let's see here. Quietus, the Assamite ability, Taste of Death, has been nerfed in the same way a little bit. Breathe the Sandstorm, which is Serpentis, that's been reduced a little bit, and then also the Semetes Thanatosis ability, Compress, which is number 5, has also been nerfed a little bit. I did this simply because some of the bosses that are a lot more powerful, they have upwards like around 500 hit points. And because these disciplines work on a percentage basis, you know, 15% of, say, like the sheriff's health, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of freaking damage for these. So that's why I've reduced it for just the supernaturals. I think it's down to between 8 and 12%. So it's going to be a little bit different each time each time you hit a supernatural, it's going to be a different damage amount within a range of 8 to 12%. Before it was like, gosh, it was around 15 to 20%. It was way too high, making the boss fights almost, I mean, like easy. Okay, let's see here. I also did a slight overall buff to all the hunters in the game. That includes Edgar Hurst, Chastity, and Bach. So how did I buff them? They now, gosh, I'm trying to think exactly what I did to buff them up a little bit. I believe I gave them higher defensive properties. They're just going to be a little bit harder to kill. They don't do any more additional damage to your vampire, nothing like that. They're going to be able to sustain damage a little bit better. Another thing that people have been asking for a long time, and a large complaint I've had against for TFN, is that the haggle feat is way too important, that you absolutely need it. And while I would agree with that, I don't think it was quite as, I guess, as much of a problem as some other people might have thought it was. But I did listen, and I do agree to a point. So I did go ahead and reduce the haggle feat's importance, which basically means that as of right now, the amount of money you receive for a quest is based on your haggle. So the higher haggle that you have, the more money you're going to receive as a reward. That also includes something like selling copper, the blood bags, or gosh, I'm trying to think. There's so many instances in the game where haggle determines how much money you make. Well, basically, in TFN 1.5, the amount of money is going to be less drastic. Such as like haggle 1, you could receive like 50, whereas haggle 10, you could receive like 500. So that range has been toned down a lot. So now, as an example, it could be like a range of 50 to 250 bucks instead of 50 to 500 bucks. So people with a low haggle are not really going to be affected by this nerf, but people with a really high haggle are going to go, wow, you know, I'm not getting as much money as I used to on haggle. So haggle is still important, don't get me wrong, especially when it comes to bribing people. I didn't touch the bribery at all, which when you bribe people to allow you to do certain things, or to let you enter certain areas, that hasn't been touched at all. That amount is still the same. So, you know, haggle is still very important, and I would recommend getting at least a haggle of 3 at the very beginning of the game. It only costs 5 experience to do that if you're starting the game with 1 haggle, because, you know, what is it, finance, I think to break into finance it's 2 experience points, and then to get a level 2 finance is 3 experience points. So yeah, haggle is still going to be important, just not quite as important. And I've also I've reduced, or I've put less money granted overall throughout the entire game. So this is going to affect everybody as well, just like the haggle nerf. Less money is going to be given to your character. You're going to find yourself with just less money overall. So you're going to have to be more careful with the, you know, you're going to have to plan out your character a little more carefully. The guy who ended up beating TFN 1.4, I think it was, it had $7,000 left over afterwards. That's not going to be the case in TFN 1.5 HD. So these are the bug fixes that are currently in 1.5. I'm working on some others, such as there was an issue with the Bali being granted humanity through the dialogue with Ash in the Society of Leopold later on in the game. And what happens is, if you're granted humanity past 6, which is supposed to be their maximum, it can break their humanity system for the Bali. That was an issue. I don't know the guy's name, but he had posted that on Planet Vampire like 6 months ago or something. I don't know. But I checked last night to see if he was right, and sure enough, he was right. That is definitely broken. So that's going to be something that's going to be fixed as well. It's a minor issue. It only affects the Bali, but that's going to be fixed in 1.5 HD. So, okay, so the new content that I've done since my last video, there was some stretching in the loading screen of the little red circles. Those were stretched out, so I went ahead and fixed those. Let's see, what else did I do? Oh, I've also incorporated the eye replacer mod by Nivius. I think that's how you say his or her name, Nivius. Whoever Nivius is did a fantastic job on reskinning all the eyes for all the vampires and humans in the game. The eyes just look awesome. They're in high definition. They just, they look good. They look good. I have to have it. So I went ahead and incorporated that into TFN 1.5 HD. I sent Nivius an email asking for permission. That person has not responded to me as of yet. So I'm going to go ahead and just use it. And if it's an issue in the future, I can always remove it, which would be sad because Nivius did a great job. And I think everybody needs to see their work for sure. And of course, I'm giving full credit to Nivius for doing this. So kudos to you, whoever you are. You did awesome. I love it. I'm putting it in TFN 1.5. I also decided, based off of Nivius's work, I was like, man, what else would really affect the entire game that would look good, like the eyes did? And so I went ahead and I created high definition teeth and tongues for all the characters in the game. They are now the teeth and tongues. Even though it's a subtle thing, it looks really good, which you'll possibly hopefully be able to see the difference through my Let's Play. But you'll definitely see the difference when you're playing it on your own. So definitely looks a lot better. And I'm still excited to see what Crispy's doing with his HD mod. I was reading on Planet Vampire that I guess there was some sort of conflict between, I don't know, it was like Sinothorn and Wesp, I think somebody else, and Crispy. They were not getting along very well or something like that, and Crispy just kind of disappeared. So I don't know where he's at. I don't know if he's going to release it now. I'm not sure really what's going on with that, but either way, I would love to see an HD texture come out and get implemented into the Final Nights. I just think that would be awesome. You know, Final Nights now that it's in 1080p is waiting and ready for someone to step up and do some awesome HD textures. So Nivius took care of the eyes, I took care of the teeth and tongue, and now we need someone to do the rest of the game. So yeah, someone take up the torch. Start working on that, please. if Crispy did decide to leave. Okay, the last thing that I did was I created a progressive particle effect for the blood buff discipline. Blood buff really didn't get a whole lot of love compared to the other disciplines in terms of different special effects, like the visual effects that you use when you use it. And blood buff is a progressive discipline, meaning that it's the same discipline over and over and over, regardless if you're using level 1 or level 5. But unfortunately with blood buff, it didn't matter visually. If you were at 1 or at 5, it looked the same on your character, and I didn't like that, especially for people who want to specialize in blood buff and get it all the way up to 5, which costs a ton of experience, by the way. So I added a progressive particle visual effect so that your character, as they progress with blood buff, will, you'll actually notice a visual change. It looks more powerful, it feels more powerful. So I thought that was highly needed. So, all right, so that is it as far as the new changes so far that are implemented into version 1.5 HD. Okay, so here we are with the new character. I've decided to give her a crazy name. Her name's going to be Sparrow Macray, which when I was looking up different names to give a character, I was looking up cool girl names and cool last names, and this is what I came up with. So Sparrow Macray. I've decided to go ahead and do an Assamite playthrough for this. Oh gosh, what was his name? Something Compass, who is a good friend of mine and YouTuber, did a follower of set playthrough for TFN 1.2 a few years ago. Awesome playthrough. He finished the game. It's incredible. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you guys go and watch that. Of course, a lot of things have changed in TFN since then, but it's still a really good playthrough. So I decided I'm not going to play as a follower of Set. And then another buddy of mine, a fellow YouTuber named JT Corpse, is in the process of doing a TFN 1.4 playthrough of a Salubri character. Because he's doing Salubri and followers of Set have already been done, I decided to do an Assamite playthrough. And I wanted to do a female because I haven't seen her armor in like years. I completely forget what it looks like, but I'm sure it looks pretty cool because, I skinned it. So I'm going to go ahead and do a female Assamite character for this Let's Play. Let me read the background for the Assamite Viziers real quick, just so we kind of have an idea. There is a more extensive background that you can read, but I'll let you read that on your own time. Based in the Middle East, the Assamites are viewed as dangerous assassins and Diablo risk by Western kindred, but in truth they are warriors, guardians, and scholars who seek to distance themselves from the jihad. Throughout their existence, they have remained self-sufficient and independent. History shows that this bloodline as loosely united until this guy, whatever his name is, Yershulgi or whatever, the eldest clan member, would declare that all would renounce religious freedom and begin worshiping their antediluvian Hakim. This caused the schism, or breakup, within the clan, leading to the formation of 3 separate castes. Your castes are known as the Viziers and make up the smallest part of the clan. Viziers are scholars, artisans, and librarians who seek the devotion to their craft above all else, which is also their weakness. At some point in their own lives, all Viziers will dedicate themselves to a talent, skill, or knowledge, and though they will greatly or excel greatly in their given art, the other 2 abilities will fall by the wayside. This obsessive pursuit of perfection will stain their aura with madness. To to the point where vampires with auspex may be able to discern exactly what it is the Assamite so doggedly pursues. Note the path of the gifted clan weakness is chosen by default. Okay, so what that basically means is that there's a talent tree, a skill tree, and a knowledge tree for all characters. If you choose a background with the path of the gifted, that means you want to specialize in everything under the talent tree. So brawl, dodge, intimidation, and subterfuge, which you will get a major experience decrease cost for those to raise these talents. However, everything under skills and knowledges will be increased for your character. That is the flaw, which is also the character asset or strength for the Assamite Vizier. If you decide to go the path of the professional, the same thing happens for skills. However, you're going to be it's going to cost a lot more to raise your talents and knowledges. If you go path of the scholar, then your knowledges are going to be extremely cheap to increase in experience, but your skills and talents are going to cost more. So that's basically what the strength and the weakness of an Assamite Vizier is. I've decided I want to go with the black hat background, which gives you an advantage, a +2 to hacking. And by choosing this, I will be granted the path of the scholar weakness. So that means not only do I get a +3 to my hacking ability right from the get-go, which is awesome, by the way, the fact that I haven't spent a single point yet. However, I already have a hacking of 3. It's also going to cost very, very little to continue increasing my computer skills and my finance, investigation, and scholarship, but it's going to cost a lot to increase brawl, dodge, intimidation, firearms, melee, anything over here. So Sparrow Macray, I'm going to go ahead and read you her background, because even though, you know, I'm going to be doing this as a YouTube video, I still want to have some modicum of role-playing and history and purpose and reason why I'm playing this character, as opposed to just doing the whole min-max thing. I'm not really a min-max player. I'm more of a role-play type of person, but I also understand that you guys want to see action, you want to see something interesting. So I'm going to do my best to balance. This is my first playthrough, so cut me a little slack. I've watched a lot of playthroughs. I hopefully know what to do, what not to do, but you know, we'll see. So here's the background for Sparrow Macray. Low-level security stuff was your game. You would find and patch vulnerabilities and exploits for a minimal fee. This got you by until you could get a higher paying gig from a larger firm. Elevated through the ranks, becoming the top dog in the crimeware division, you became a script kiddie's worst nightmare. Life was pretty good until you were blamed for a high-level rootkit attack on a competitor's network. This event led you to go underground, hiding from the authorities and destroying your reputation, effectively denying you future employment in the security field. So basically what happened to her, she was a very talented computer, crimeware division, cybersecurity kind of person, basically like a white hat, until she was framed by a competitor, which made her go underground, and she's been essentially living, surviving, I guess I should say, off of her computer hacking skills. Shortly after this happened, you received a message from within your own network requesting your presence at a nearby motel room in Santa Monica, which is where your saga begins. So Sparrow Macray received a message from within her own network, which of course, you know, would freak her out, like, who the heck has just hacked my network? I know everything about computers. Kind of like the movie The Matrix at the beginning, where Neo gets his computer hacked, and he receives a message that says follow the white rabbit. Essentially that's kind of what happened here. Her presence was requested at a nearby motel room in Santa Monica. Your talents with cryptography and data freaking must be nurtured if you wish to endure these final nights. So that's what we have here for Sparrow Macray. let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and invest my 2 points here of knowledge. Let's see here. I'm going to invest my first 2 points into computer because that just fits with the background, giving her a computer hacking of 5. I'm going to do my best. My goal for this character is to hack all 17 computers, granting me an extra 17 experience and getting the money sent to my mailbox. That's kind of my goal, and then of course to complete the game as well, which is going to be a lot tougher in TFN 1.5. This is going to be a hard game. I haven't played with the new balance changes yet, and I sometimes tend to go overboard with some of the balance things that I do sometimes. So we'll see, in this Let's Play, if this game is like incredibly hard or not. So I'm going to go with 2 points in computer right here, giving her a hacking of 5. Let's see here. Intelligence is obviously, I want to get intelligence because it increases my hacking even further. I'd love to be able to start hacking these online banking things at the beginning of the game, so I don't have to go back. But wits isn't really going to be all that important at the beginning of the game because there's not a whole lot of combat except for with Gimbal and the Cathayan, the Eastern Vampire. That's pretty much about it until I get to the warehouse mission. Perception's going to give me +1 to range, which again, there's not a lot of combat. This character is going to be a range character because I'm going to go Auspex level 5. I'm going to bring this all the way up. So I'm going to be a gun, firearms heavy character. I'm not going to really put a whole lot into unarmed and melee. I might put a little bit into unarmed just so I can feed on the unwilling, but I'm not going to invest a single point into melee, especially with it being under the skills. It's going to cost a lot of money to do that. So let's see here, perception. See, here's the thing though. Inspection is still incredibly important. I would love to be able to find items, especially like I would love to walk around all the different hubs with Auspex turned on all the time, just so I can find, because there are 10 items on each hub, and these items are awesome for selling, which can make you money. However, the higher tier items, you can actually get occult items, which are incredibly valuable to have and to sell. You can actually find 4 of these, 1 in each hub, and you can get the different clothing if you have a level 10 in inspection. Each hub has the armor tier of the next hub. So like the armor that gives you +1 to bashing can be found in Santa Monica if you have a inspection of 10. And you can actually get the body armor. You can actually find the body armor in the Chinatown hub if you have an inspection of 10. So the fact that I can get these occult items, plus I'm going to get a boost to perception. I'm going to get a +4 to perception, which means I only need to boost my inspection to level 6, and then be walking around with Auspex, which lasts, by the way, 140 seconds at level 5. And I can just find everything and be able to sell it. So Auspex is incredible for hacking and for increasing your inspection. So I really, really want perception. I want to sink it into perception, but I also want to sink it into intelligence. This is a really hard decision. I think I'm going to go intelligence just to get my hacking to 6 at the beginning of the game. For this right here, let's see here. These abilities are going to cost a ton. What do I need the most? I don't need melee at all because I'm not going to be fighting hand to hand. I do want firearms, but I don't need it right away. Security is really helpful right away because there's a lot of places to lockpick, and I only have blood buff 1, which costs 3 blood, by the way, which is really expensive. Let's see here, security. So this is really important to have. Stealth is really important to have as well. I don't have obfuscate, so I'm gonna have to get my stealth up in order to do the Dane mission, the ship where you have to sneak around on. That's basically like impossible without some sort of sneaking. But that's not for a while. So I'm going to hold off on stealth. I'm going to hold off on firearms for now because I'm not going to be really doing combat right away. Let's go ahead and sync this into security. From a role-playing perspective, I'm just going to say that she learned how to pick locks while she's been on the run. So that's going to justify why she has a lock-picking skill of 3. As far as talents go, subterfuge, affects seduction, intimidation, defense, and brawl. These are going to be really expensive to increase. You know, I don't think I'm going to invest a whole lot into the social skills, intimidation, persuasion, and seduction. I think I'm just going to do my best to feed, hunt, which is really hard in the Final Nights because there's so many dang people in all the hubs. But I think I'm going to go ahead and invest this into brawl so I can feed on the unwilling during combat. Because it's so frustrating when you're in a combat situation and you can't feed on anybody. Everyone just fights you off. And you desperately need blood for blood heal or for whatever you're using. That's frustrating. So hopefully increasing that a little bit will be good. Let's see here. Charisma, manipulation, or appearance. So that's seduction, that's haggle and intimidate, and that affects persuasion. Let's go with manipulation because I do want my haggle up. Haggle affects the amount of money you get at the very, very beginning of the game. I think if you have a haggle of 1, you get 25 bucks. I think if you have a haggle 2, you instantly get 50 bucks. I think you basically get $25 for every point in haggle that you have, which is nice to start out the game with that extra money because money's going to be a lot tougher to go to come by. So as I already said, I'm going to go Auspex level 2, which grants me 1 point to wits and perception. Let's see here. Okay, so level 1 Auspex only gives you 1 point to wits. So level 1 Auspex sucks. Completely sucks. It does last 25 seconds, which is pretty nice. That's like out of all the different disciplines, Auspex has the longest timer, which is awesome. So you get a lot of bang for your buck there, but all it does is give you +1 to wits, and then reveals the auras of living and undead within a really, really short distance. So it's pretty much worthless. But level 2, you get that +1 to perception, which is going to increase my inspection by 1 and my range by 1. So that's actually really nice. Costs 1 blood per activation, but it lasts 50 seconds. That's awesome. And it reveals all living and undead within a modest distance, which when you're in the Bradbury Hotel later in the game and there's Sabbat freaking everywhere, knowing where they are is so freaking helpful. So Auspex is going to be really nice for that mission as well. So let's go with Auspex level 2, and I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and sign out of here, but I'm not going to skip the intro. I'm going to let you guys watch the intro. I'm going to watch it with you, but I'm not going to really be talking, I don't think, too much. I'm just going to kind of watch it. And then I will cut the video, and we will pick up from behind the theater when we're talking to Jack for the tutorial. I've rewritten a lot of dialogue for the tutorial for each of the 7 clans, which I'll talk about later, but that's why I'm going to actually do the tutorial. Not a whole lot has changed per se from 1.4.1, but the player dialogue is different for each clan depending on which clan you play, and I would like to eventually do that for every clan throughout the entire game. But that's going to take like years of my time to do, and I want to release 1.5 rather sooner rather than later. So if there's a 1.6, that's probably going to be a player dialogue complete overhaul for 1.6. But anyways, that's in the future. But anyways, all right. So I'm going to let this video play, and I will see you guys for our very first Let's Play part 1. Now that we have character creation out of the way, and we'll go from there. This is Zero Morse signing off.
Good evening. My fellow kindred, my apologies for disrupting any business or interfering with prior engagements you may have had this evening. It's unfortunate that the affair that gathers us together tonight is a troubling one. We are here because the laws that bind our society, the laws that are the fabric of our existence, have been broken. As prince, I am within my rights to grant or deny the kindred of this city the privilege of siring. Many of you have come to me seeking permission, and I have endorsed some of these requests. However, the accused that sits before you tonight was not refused permission. Indeed, my permission was never sought at all. They were caught shortly after the embrace of this child. It pains me to announce the sentence, as up to tonight I considered the accused a loyal and upstanding member of our organization. But as some of you may know, the penalty for this transgression is death. Know that I am no more adjudicator than I am a servant to the law that governs us all. Let tonight's proceedings serve as a reminder to our community that we must adhere to the code that binds our society, lest we endanger all of our blood. Forgive me. Let the penalty commence. Which leads to the fate of the ill-begotten progeny. Without a sire, most children are doomed to walk the earth never knowing their place, their responsibility, and most importantly, the laws they must obey. Therefore, I have decided that...
This is bullshit!
If Mr. Rodriguez would let me finish. I have decided to let this kindred live. They shall be instructed in the ways of our kind and be granted the same rights. Let no one say I am unsympathetic to the plights and causes of this community. I thank you all for attending these proceedings, and I hope their significance is not lost. Good evening. Your sire, tragic, my apologies. But you see, there is a strict code of conduct that all of us must adhere to if we wish to survive. When anyone breaks these laws, they undermine the well-worn fabric of our centuries-old society. Understand my predicament. Allowing you to live makes me directly responsible for your subsequent behavior. So, what I'm offering is not generosity, but the opportunity to transcend the fate woven by your sire. This is your trial. You will be brought to Santa Monica. There you will meet an agent by the name of Mercurio. He will provide the details of your labor. I've shown you great clemency. Prove it was more than a wasted gesture, fledgling. Don't come back until you do. Good evening.